Hi, my name is Gudrun from GE Designs, home of the Strapology Ruler. The Dangerous Block of the Month was inspired by my love for scraps and in particular using them up and making something beautiful. Also, I love listening to mystery books when I sew. So let's dive into this Block of the Month. Block 6 is dedicated to Zoe Bentley, who is the fictional character created by Mike Omer in only a 3-part series, but I really enjoyed reading them. She is a forensic psychologist specializing in profiling. Working for the FBI, she is relentless in going after her suspects and getting them caught. First off, make sure you have your pattern printed out and look at the cutting instructions. We have 2 ways of cutting your background, whether you're cutting from a single fabric or just from your scraps. All of the background fabric pieces have letters assigned to the sizes, and then as you do your color scraps, each piece has a number, which we refer to as we go through the pattern. So I got all of my fabric cut, so here is a photo of my pieces before I started. I like to use my organizing clips and stickers to make sure they're all labeled and ready to grab when I need them. So starting with step number 1, we need a 1.5 by 7 inch background rectangle D and sew that to a 2.5 by 7 inch fabric B. That's the number 2 rectangle, as we can see here in the photo. And once I had this sewn and pressed, I subcut that into 1.5 inch units. And once you have those done, you take them and you add a background rectangle, which is going on into, let's turn this the right way, going on into step 2, a background rectangle this is background rectangle A to the number 1 fabric A on the other side. So each side of the subcut units from step 1. And we're going to make 4 of those. Moving on into step number 3, where we take those 4, we are first just going to sew them together, just like this, 2 units like this. And then we're going to press according to the arrows, press this way. So I have 2 pieces here. And then we're going to join those pieces. So we're going to sew this together into that center block. Piecing this one and then joining the 2, I actually spun the seams on the back so that they would nest and lay nice and flat. So that is our center block. Going into our step number 4, we're going to do some strip piecing as well. So with all of your fabrics, so we have a background rectangle E, then we're going to sew that to the colored rectangle C from fabric C, which is number 3. It'll be fabric C, D, E, and F. So we're making 4 different ones if you have 4 different fabrics for that unit. From there, we're going to subcut those into 2.5 inch wide units. So if you have all of them, I like to lay them all down on my mat so I can cut them all at the same time. And so I like to then align my line on my ruler with a stitch line or the seam so that I know these guys are going to be straight. So then I'm just going to follow my black squares on my ruler, 2.5 inch increments, and cut those. We're going to get 4 from each color because we're going to make 4 of these blocks. 4 blocks, and then we are going to assemble these very similar to what we did with the center block, making these types of pinwheels. So we're going to make 2, so 2 and 2 together first like that, and then we're going to join them. And I like to spin the seams again on the back. You can press either direction if you want to, if you prefer to do that. So once we have these done, we are in step 5, moving on to step number 6, we are going to sew a 4.5 by 1.5 inch background rectangle B to one side of the unit. We're just pressing outwards. And then we're gonna take a 1.5 by 5.5 inch background rectangle C to the top. So this is a B and a C. So that to, or I show that to the bottom. It really doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does matter. Make sure you have all of your units. So this should be 4 different ones. Once you have these done, make sure they're always sewn to the same side. So one side is the short and then the long side is always on the same side. So that matters. Once you have these done in step 6, we're gonna move on, set these aside, and move on to our step number 7. And for that, you have to make a lot of strip sets. So we make 5 different strip sets, and I have a photo of how I made them so you know how they're gonna turn out. So first part of step 7, we are using the F background rectangles, the 4.5 by 7s, and we're sewing one side or to both sides, either the fabric G rectangles number 4, and then the other one we're sewing the fabric H rectangles number 6. And then we have the sets in the middle, which is the background rectangle G, and which is the 2.5 by 7. And then we also have background rectangles that are 1.5 by 7. That's rectangles D. And then the little strips in the middle, again, are fabric G and H. And then we have the furthest on the right. That is where we use the 2.5 by 7 inch background rectangles G. We sew that to each side of a 2.5 inch by 7 fabric H. So once all of these are done, we all subcut them into 1.5 inch wide units. And that is going to be, you're going to be able to get 4 from each of those. And make sure you stack them and be efficient with it. So what I'm going to show you here is what we got out of it, which just how I laid them out in that photo. Here was the largest center and the middle ones. And then of course, the one that had the 3 2.5 inch units. And now we're going to assemble those into the blocks in step 8. So we're going to start with this side with the fabric G. And so as you can see, we're going to create this chain effect here. These 3 come together, and then it would be these 2 on the other side. So once you have these, I like to sew 2 seams at a time. I sew these 2 pressing towards these units, just like the images show. And then I added this one to one side and then joined them. You should be able to nest all of those seams. So when they're ready, you should have 4 blocks like this. So that comes after step number 8. And then once 8 is done, all that's left is just assembling our block. So I'm going to leave this one right here since it's not sewn together yet, so that we can have this one here on the side. And we are turning, oh, it needs to be turned. I'm going to move it over to this way because we want to make sure that the fabric here, the fabric H, that needs to be on the outside. Or actually fabric G is on the outside. Like this. And then we're creating this little, let me move this so you can see it. And there, so we are seeing we have the same color fabric that goes around like this. In the center, we're going to put our center block. like that. And then for the outer edges, we are just putting our 4 pinwheels, little spinners, and a 4th one that I haven't assembled yet. That is going to be here. And once you're happy with the arrangement of the colors, you should be good to sew them together. So we would be sewing this together in just horizontal rows, very easy, simple, and then joining the rows following the pressing in the pattern, and block number 6 is ready to go.